Welcome to a cold episode of LA Fishguys. Believe it or not, we're in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, setting up a 280-gallon Coral Reef Tank. Come on with us! So this tank here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming is 280 gallons. It's 30 inches tall, 60 inches long, and it's 36 inches wide. This is going to have two pumps on this system, and it will be a reef tank. One pump is going to drive water from the tank through the overflow down to the Berlin style filter and back into the tank. That's going to be driven by an Milwaukee 40 pump. There'll be a second pump in the system for internal circulation. It's going to draw via this strainer that we're going to mount down there in the face of the overflow. That in turn is going to lead down to that big 3,600 gallon hour pump sitting in the cabinet below, which in turn will discharge back up inside that internal overflow, and it's going to pop out here in the top of the tank. It'll split into two different 1-inch lines, and it'll connect to these sea swirl units, one in this corner and one in the opposing corner. And the idea being is not only is that internal circulation, meaning water that's circulated specifically within the tank, but we're using these sea swirl units, which have this oscillating discharge nozzle, and we'll set them up so that they're opposite of the two, so that they will create this random chaotic water movement within the tank. Because this tank is going to be an SPS tank, all staghorn corals, and we want to make sure that they get adequate flow, which is high flow. We also want to make sure that no algae or debris get a chance to settle in the tank, creating a problem for us there. Additionally, inside the overflow is the Durzo standpipe. This is what we'll use to send water down to the Berlin style filter, and this will allow the overflow to fill up with water, thus minimizing all that splashing or cascading noise and make it much quieter. You can see here, we've got an oversized Berlin style filter. At one end, the inlet end, are two bulkheads that will drop the water down into two separate micron socks. We'll probably only use these socks in the beginning to polish the water. That water in turn will pass through the open end of the Berlin filter. These are the post-filter sponges here, and then they'll be picked up by the water pump. You can see over here is an Milwaukee 40 water pump that not only is going to send the water back to the tank, that's also the pump that's going to send the water to the chiller. And the chiller we're probably going to put on a shelf above the top of the tank so that we can minimize its footprint or space on the floor. It also puts us real close to an exhaust vent that we can duct the hot air over from there. Back over here in the rear corner is a Dart reef flow pump. Does 3,600 gallons an hour. This is the one that's going to suck directly from the tank and return directly to the tank via those sea swirl units. We also have a 1/3 horsepower chiller that we're still needing to unpack. And there's one of those large Euroreef protein skimmers that will sit in the sump below, as well as a metal halide retrofit lighting system. This will consist of three 250 watt 10,000 K metal halide bulbs, and I believe there's a pair of 65 or 96 watt actinic bulbs or blue bulbs incorporated into that retrofit. And that'll fit on the underside of the canopy once we get it placed on top of the tank. There's also a calcium reactor, and off that 100-gallon reef tank that we set up a while back that's now been dismantled, there is an aquarium computer, an Aquadyne. I think it's packed away in one of those boxes there, and so we'll have to get that out and get that hooked up into the system as well. Here's our canopy that'll go on top of the tank. Currently it's sitting upside down. Both long sides are doors that will flip back up upon themselves, and so the long panel plus about 12 inches of the top panel there together as one piece will flip back up on top of the canopy, similar to the lid on the trunk of your car. And again, this occurs on both sides. We've also got holes drilled in both ends. There'll be exhaust fans, one of them probably sucking air out, the other one passing air in, and then there's an additional hole there for the power cords for that metal halide lighting system, which MJ is going to use marine epoxy, which is a white epoxy paint, and he'll paint the inside of that canopy not only for protection of the wood, but it'll also add some reflectiveness and send some of that light back into the tank. And so MJ's gone home for the day, and probably after I leave this weekend, he'll end up finishing the inside of that. And then the outside, by the way, that's made of all mahogany, and he's going to finish that, which in turn, this big sliding barn door also being mahogany, and then the cabinet itself will be faced off with mahogany as well. So it'll end up being a very attractive unit that all fits together and blends together inside here.
Be sure to come on back for part 2 as we begin to assemble the filter system and the internal circulation system for this large 280-gallon living coral reef tank here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We also get a chance to go out and play in the snow a bit.
You're going to be our salesman here in
I can
Jackson.